Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever the case may be, people. Welcome back to the channel. Yes, you do not need to adjust your TV sets or phone tablets or laptops or whatever you may be watching on. I am live on my channel. It has been a little while. There's a reason. There's a very good reason. I believe in quality over quantity, and the reason I say that is because not only Liverpool have decided, after years and years of twiddling our thumbs, some would say, in the transfer market, have decided to really go for it this summer in quality or quantity. I, Grizz Khan, have decided to bring some of the finest guests around to talk about this transfer window with me, for me, and for you guys. And so I welcome I'd like to say my friend, Ben. Ben Jacobs. If you don't know Ben Jacobs, I have no idea where you have been this transfer window. Ben usually hangs out with the likes of Fabrizio Romano and David Ornstein and the like. But we are absolutely honored to have some time with him today on our humble little channel. Ben, you are very, very welcome.
Thank you. And you are my friend. And I'm glad you wore that incredible hat for this return to your channel.
Yeah, I'm trying to balance it up. I hate being it lopsided, but yeah, sorry.
You look good. I thought the lopsided thing was sort of a French thing and was intentional.
You crack on while I adjust it, but welcome.
You're looking good. It's in sync with the little lights on the back of your microphone. But yeah, it's great to be here. I just want to start, because I always do this, particularly with Liverpool podcasts, and I'll continue to do this throughout the summer, by wishing my condolences to the Liverpool fan base. I think it's really important, even in the weeks or months or years afterwards, to keep acknowledging that, but particularly when coming on a Liverpool show, because naturally it's a sensitive situation. We're talking about transfers. We're talking about players that have played with Jota. We're talking about positions that are not too far from his. And obviously none of this matters. And it does feel difficult getting back into transfer news when you think about that bigger picture. So I again extend my condolences to Diogo Jota, Andre Silva, the Liverpool family, both of their families. And what an amazing outpouring. I am in New York, as you can probably see behind me. But when I get back, don't want to say looking forward, because it's heartbreaking, but I certainly want to go to Anfield and see all these tributes, the mural. I watched back the goal against Everton, and it shows you everything that he was as a player, from tenacity to intelligence to footwork to flair to finish. The song obviously will keep being sung. The 20th minute will keep being marked. Wolves have inducted him in their Hall of Fame. Liverpool have retired the number as well. And to get into transfers, I think it's really important to start with paying that respect. And there was actually a lot of stories, particularly relating to Luis Diaz, I felt a bit uncomfortable covering, because you kind of feel like we're moving straight on. We're going back into the market. Everyone's getting excited about this insane, incredible Liverpool summer. But let's just not forget it's a sad summer. I know Liverpool fans won't, but as a journalist, not a Liverpool fan, but somebody that will cover the market, I always just want to start with that, especially when coming onto a show for the first time. So Liverpool fans realise that transfers and all the excitement we're hopefully going to talk about now means nothing in the context of what unfortunately happened to Diogo Jota and Andre Silva. And I wish once again the whole Liverpool family my condolences.
Yeah, I have nothing to add. I couldn't add anything else there, and I dare not subtract anything. That was beautifully put and beautifully said. And look, people know that I struggled with it, to be honest with you. I had a week to 10 days off. Talking about football, as you said, Ben, was difficult. He was a particular favorite of mine as well. And so therefore, you know, even though I didn't know him personally, but you have a relationship with players that you support, the club that you support. And it's almost, we feel like we know them. We feel like we're part of that family. And we are ultimately the Liverpool family. And also you made very clear that you're not a Liverpool fan per se, but, you know, you have absolute admiration and respect, and your words mean a lot to probably all the fan base. So thank you very much for that. But you're right. It was difficult, but I think for me, the kind of closure or kind of thing that put me in a positive light was seeing the players play football again, because as hard as it is, and we know as hard, you know, he will never be forgotten, and I echo everything that you said. Ultimately, football will go on and does go on. And so therefore, we're here today to talk about the transfer window that is going on. And I want to just, before we get into the people are going to be throwing in the questions and names and etc. 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 I want to ask you, Ben. Ben, what's caused this transfer carnage from Liverpool and FSG and Hughes and Edwards and Cole? Did you foresee this summer? I labeled it huge summer. This is a huge
I like that.
summer,
I might steal
right?
that.
This is
I'm
a
too
huge
cool to
summer.
be saying huge with a Y instead of an H. So I think there's a few factors. One is need and urgency. Two is backing on a slot. Three is an appreciation that if they strengthen now, they can really create a sort of dominance domestically and hopefully in Europe. Whereas if you don't, then you're dealing with a Premier League win that did have some old players and those that have obviously departed in the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold and Jarrell Quansah. It's all very well celebrating Mo Salah extending and the same for Virgil van Dijk, but they're not there forever players. So I think lowering the average age is one factor, backing on a slot is another. And then I would probably add that there's been a bit of stockpiling of funding. And at the time when they didn't spend, you might say they had urgency, particularly probably 3 windows where they could have done with a midfield revamp. And they finally did it and to good effect. But in that 3 windows, there was the Moises Caicedo money that they were prepared to offer. Yes, they spent some of it afterwards. There was the Romeo Lavia money. You could argue there was the funds allocated to try and get Jude Bellingham before they realized that he was off to Real Madrid. And what I sort of hear from FSG Liverpool sources is always this notion of there is money to spend. If you stockpile the money, you save the money, you're strategic. But these kind of windows are spend now, do it, or move on. And therefore, having saved up a bit because they couldn't find the right targets, it is a case now of being decisive. So everything's kind of come together in like a perfect storm. The right time, the right season, the right age groups, the right positions, an inflated market. Liverpool closed their financial year at the end of May. Other teams don't. And it means they can move very early because everything's going on the next financial year. Add all of that up. And it's still not over, by the way. And this is kind of why Liverpool have strengthened so well. And yet, they're not strengthening in a flashy, showy, panicky, audacious type of way. It's very calm and considered. I know it doesn't appear that when you look at the Isak Ekitike last 24, 48 hours, but a very underrated signing is Mamardashvili, who was pre-agreed. And that's the Liverpool way, where you've got your goalkeeper, Alisson. The expectation is he stays as the number one. Mamardashvili, therefore, has a season to bed in. And then at some point, if it goes according to plan, there'll be a kind of handover or a transition. With Frimpong and with Kirkas, they probably are expecting more game time immediately. But in the case of Kirkas, he's already played in the Premier League. In the case of Frimpong, just a deal at great value. There was a release clause there. Wirtz is obviously the box office one. And again, it might appear like the story with Wirtz was he's going to stay in Germany, then he's going to Bayern, then he's going to Man City, look at Liverpool. But if you bill that as a Liverpool hijack, you don't understand this strategy because the Wirtz deal discreetly, privately, was in the making for months and months and months until the point where they went, hang on a minute, the initial indications that he's going to stay in Germany are not true. And then they move to Leverkusen where they have the great relationship. So when it's in the public domain, you suddenly go, wow, Liverpool, whirlwind. We've never seen this before. But it's definitely the fruition of months and months of private, diligent, discreet negotiation that is now leading to this massive window.
Yeah, I think you put it perfectly because look, people will talk about sort of the previous 18 months or so before the new or stroke old regime was brought back in terms of Edwards and of course Hughes being the new guy. But the previous 18 months wasn't quite Liverpool, wasn't quite the precision, the calculated work that you refer to. But evidently, it's as you said, it's been put into practice. They came back, they don't do nothing in Slot's first season. They assess. And my God, do they assess and they start planning and meticulous planning. And we're not going to go backwards. We're going to look forwards because I'm sure you've discussed and I've discussed the 3 brilliant starts, the signings that we made to the window. But now again, I just want to get your thoughts, because some people are baffled, some people are calling it 4D chess, some people are calling it mind games. I just want to get your thoughts on the interest in Ekitike and the apparent attempt to try to lure Isak at the same time. Give us your opinion and your thoughts from what you've been told in terms of the strategy behind this.
Yeah, I'd reported right at the beginning of the summer that Hugo Ekitike was very high in Liverpool's thinking. So Ekitike is not a new deal. They ran the data. He scores highly. He's versatile in the box. He's got a bit of an old school quality about him too. So a lot of attributes that fit with the system. And yet we know that Isak was, whichever way you want to look at it, the dream target. I don't think Liverpool and Isak is over, but perhaps for this window. And I know social media will only take that first part and say Ben Jacobs says it's still live. But my point is more Newcastle's own desire to bring in Ekitike, even if it was Ekitike and Isak, had an element of succession planning. And they will know Newcastle one day. There will come a point when Isak is sold. And when that day comes, I still expect Liverpool to be there. Is it going to be now? And in addition to Hugo Ekitike, you would think it highly unlikely. You can just say never with Liverpool and this window, but ultimately the urgency to get clarity on Alexander Isak was prompted by two things. Number one, Newcastle were moving for the other target, Ekitike. And number two, they didn't want Ekitike to think that they were all in on Isak and he was a backup. So they were quite smart because they were honest with the player who they approached before Isak. They told him the situation and that he was high in their thinking. He knew very transparently that they were also holding a conversation with Newcastle. So he didn't feel let down or misled, and there was full buy-in. And after approaching Newcastle, the belief at the moment, and I can only give you the latest as of now, is that 120 to 130 million would not be accepted. Newcastle are quite bullish, and even more so because they've lost out on Hugo Ekitike. And therefore, Isak for now is not as active as it was 48 hours ago. Doesn't mean that they won't revisit it in future windows or points in time. But right now, all the focus has switched to Ekitike. And obviously, if you only look at the last 48 hours, you say Isak was the priority, and then they turned to Ekitike. And they escalated both because they knew if they didn't, Newcastle might just sign Ekitike, and then they might not get Isak or Ekitike. But that crucial point I made about Ekitike scoring high in the data, Ekitike being approached early in the window. And I said it many times on streams that every other club under the sun was talking to Frankfurt, Manchester United, Chelsea, Newcastle. They were all there, and Liverpool weren't, because they knew the terms. They knew the price would drop later in the window. And if they get the deal over the line, then that will be proven. And they knew, most importantly, that the player was open to the move. So whereas everyone else got caught in a Frankfurt manufactured bidding war, apparently Chelsea are leading the race. They were never as advanced as anyone said. Apparently Manchester United are entering the race. Where's that 90 to 100 million euros coming from? This was engineered to get Liverpool out the woodwork. And Frankfurt were playing a game trying to scare Liverpool to moving early. And yet Liverpool were waiting, one, for the right time in the market so the price dropped, and two, to understand the Isak situation first. Now they understand the Isak situation and they tried, and they formally bid for Hugo Ekitike. So let's see what between now and the weekend bring, because Ekitike could be done very quickly. But make no mistake, this wasn't grandstanding. This wasn't a game to scare Newcastle United into potentially selling Isak and then getting Ekitike themselves. Hugo Ekitike has been a concrete and leading target for Liverpool since pretty much April, as I've reported, and therefore getting him might be seen by some fans as a backup, but I'm not so sure that Liverpool will see it that way if the deal gets over the line.
Yeah, like you say, it was there was need for clarity on all parties. We all know that sort of these coaches, especially a new coach, and we still forget that Arne Slot is a new coach. Just because he absolutely demolished the league in his first season, he is a new coach, and he'd like to have his players, and the amount of changes that have been made to the squad, he'd like to have all of these players in before pre-season, or the bulk of the pre-season. So, and like you said, there was clarity needed, and possibly, like you said, in the next 48 hours, I think there will be clarity on where the striker, the striker path takes us. If it's Isak, or somehow it's Isak, which looks less likely now, as you said, or Ekitike, who looks more likely. Obviously, related to that is also sort of where that leaves us in funds wise, because if it's Ekitike, we're assuming he's possibly costing just over half of what Isak would have cost. Does that give Liverpool scope to further enhance the attack? And more specifically, I want to get to the name of Rodrigo. What is your understanding of that situation, that scenario?
Well, let's kind of cover Luis Diaz, Rodrigo, and that left side, because I think they're all sort of intertwined. So, short answer, starting position or window has been Liverpool don't want to sell Luis Diaz. They run the data. They decide he can still have value next season. I think it was 13 goals last season. But the player would like a move away. And we know his dream move is perhaps Barcelona. A more feasible financial move might be Bayern Munich. And keep an eye on whether Saudi and Al Nassr in particular try and complicate the situation, because they're prepared to make a big bid. Luis Diaz is the top target. I've mentioned and reported other names, but Diaz is the top target. It all just depends whether the player is open to leaving for Saudi Arabia or actually only really wants to leave because there's these options of either Barcelona or Bayern. Now, if Liverpool change their stance because the money's too good to turn down, it will also be down to the fact that when you run these algorithms and they're very data driven, of course it shows Luis Diaz's worth. But one thing you can't put into that algorithm is how does the player react on the field if they wanted to move away? And does that affect their form, their motivation, their pre-season? And this is why often when a player wants to leave, they get the move. So Diaz exit can't be discounted, but we should be clear that Liverpool's starting stance is they want to keep Diaz. And as a consequence, it's not like as aggressively with a Florian Wirtz type player or Frimpong or obviously the number 9. It's not like they've really gone out there to take significant steps to adding another left winger or attacker yet. But that will change if Luis Diaz departs. And it will have to be for very serious money. Darwin Nunez is going to bring in money as well, wherever he goes. Saudi could be a possibility. Napoli have ended their interest. It's funny because I reported Liverpool rejected a 70 million euros offer from Al Nassr in January for Darwin Nunez. Because again, like Luis Diaz, they felt he could play a role between, at that point, January and the end of the season. So Liverpool still are using that valuation. And a lot of the fans of Napoli in particular said, nonsense, he's not worth that. They're not going to sell him for that. And guess what? They've stuck to their valuation and he hasn't gone to Napoli. But Saudi are prepared to pay that price if Nunez opens the door. And I still think Al Hilal and Darwin Nunez with Galatasaray on course to get Victor Osimhen could be one to watch. So I say that as a decoy or as a tangent because it shows you Liverpool can bring in money, and also the Ekitike deal, like you rightly say, will not be as expensive as Isak. On top of that, Frimpong was got at value. Quantz's fee can, to an extent, be deducted off the Wirtz package, which was not anywhere close to 150 million euros, despite reports. So Liverpool feel comfortable financially that they can have more big outlays. This isn't going to be we're not going for a target because they're too expensive. This is, we'll go for any target if there's value in the deal. And I don't think there's necessarily a financial restriction other than they can't go and break 3 transfer records for 3 more signings. But generally speaking, they've got a lot of leeway to work with. And this is why we're seeing the summer that's materialized. With Rodrigo, I'm not really about selling a false dream here. We've heard reports, and I respect other reporters in Brazil saying that Liverpool are seriously in the race, that Liverpool are sending a delegation to Madrid, that Liverpool are definitively in for Rodrigo. It's too early to say that. And the reason why, so everyone understands, is because Rodrigo's on holiday and he's not yet held the key meeting with Real Madrid. And nothing is going to change until Rodrigo speaks to Real Madrid and specifically to Xabi Alonso. If the player says, I want to go and play on the left, my only opportunities at Real are on the bench or on the right because of Mbappe and Vinny Jr., Real are prepared to sell. And the number is 90 million euros, I'm told, or thereabouts, plus agent fees, plus wage. So it's very expensive. Now, I broke a story at the beginning of the window saying Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal all appreciate Rodrigo. And that's where we're at the moment. So although a Liverpool move can't be categorically ruled out. They're not advancing on it yet. And even if it does develop, it won't happen until the point when Rodrigo communicates what he wants to do, first to Real and then to the market. And the other thing in all of this, which is going to complicate it, is there are some serious intermediaries, big agents involved in this deal who have got a mandate in order to explore possibilities. And as a consequence, there's a lot of where he might go, because clearly it's in the interest of anyone trying to explore a deal to make sure there's options for him. But we first need to wait and be patient on the Rodrygo story for Liverpool or for any other club until he communicates his position to Real Madrid. That could happen as early as this weekend or next week, I'm told. And then we'll have a clearer picture on the Rodrygo front. Then the other thing is, just because Newcastle can't get Isak, and just because people think somehow that PIF and Yasser Al-Rumayyan are irked by an approach, which is nonsense, by the way, every single club, and especially Liverpool, in the way that they act, respects that there will be a buyer and a seller in any deal. So the idea that if you dare mention the name Alexander Isak to Newcastle United, you're somehow going to fall out with the club and never be able to do business again is utter nonsense. The idea that Yasser Al-Rumayyan hates the fact that Liverpool indicated they want to make an offer, it's absolutely no skin off his back. They could make an offer of 20 billion for the player. And if Yasser Al-Rumayyan, the Newcastle chair, decides he doesn't want to sell, he simply won't sell. He's not going to be irritated or annoyed by it. And therefore, Liverpool have a really good relationship with Newcastle United. Make no mistake. And regardless of what's said in public, and to suggest somehow that Liverpool have crossed the line in daring to be ambitious and sign a world-class player. Newcastle understand that. Richard Hughes, by the way, and Eddie Howe have a long-standing relationship. Absolutely. And Howe is all over the Newcastle recruitment, especially with the outgoing of Paul Mitchell, and Hughes is running the show at Liverpool. So the idea that there are not conversations going on, and I say that because there will be a chance, if Isak isn't possible and the left side needs strengthening, that Liverpool revisit Anthony Gordon. And that is another one to keep an eye on. So Rodrigo, it's not that I'm not getting acknowledgement of appreciation from Liverpool, because I am. It's just this idea that as of yesterday, they're in Madrid, they're negotiating, they're ready to bid. All of that, to me anyway, for now, maybe it will change, but for now, it feels a bit premature. And I don't want to sort of oversell it as a kind of false dream before we understand whether appreciation turns into anything. It might not. But with Anthony Gordon, it's more than that, simply because 12 months ago, they had the deal. It was basically done. And had Newcastle United not sold Elliot Anderson to Nottingham Forest and Yakuba Minter to Brighton, they would have been in a PSR bind, and Gordon would have definitely got over the line, because it was verbally lined up for, I think, about 75 million. And then suddenly Newcastle were able to pivot because they were reluctant sellers. They found the money another way. Gordon deal got taken off the table. So given that was only 12 months ago, don't just think about Rodrigo if Diaz leaves. There may well be a possibility that a revisited approach for Anthony Gordon is made.
And very, very quickly, I know your time is very precious, and 800 of you have been showing you amazing love. 800 of you should be smashing that like button as well, people. Thank you very much for tuning in. I know lack of content is damaging my channel, but I'm prepared to work hard and bring it back in. But very quickly, centre-back issue must be addressed. Kwanzaa has gone. Still doubts about Khanage scenario. We won't focus on the Khanage scenario in this episode. I'm going to beg you on again at some point.
Sure, not beg.
You know, the proverbial beg.
You only have to ask, mate.
Guehi of Palace. What is your understanding of the situation with Guehi of Palace?
Yeah, actually, Marc Guehi is a bit of an exception in the profile that Liverpool are looking for. So if he's available at value, then Liverpool will move. But the idea of value is probably 35, 40 million, because he's only got a year left on his contract. Palace want to sell now because they know Guehi won't renew. Guehi's actually prepared just to stay in a World Cup year, get guaranteed game time, and then work out his future as a free transfer. But it's not an opportune scenario for Crystal Palace if it plays out that way. And this is why I think there's a deal to be had. At this stage of the window, still quite early, Palace are looking for 45 or 50. And I was actually told at the beginning of the window that that number's fixed plus add-ons. So the total package will be over £50 million. And Liverpool are not going to engage. They're not
Yeah.
going to bid. They're not going to do anything unless the price drops significantly. So there is genuine interest there, but it will have to be on Liverpool's terms, or rather, it will have to be what they consider to be value. And that's the thing about Liverpool, that when they do these deals, they're not only going, we want everything on our terms, because guess what? That's what every single buyer would always do. It'd be nuts to say we'll do something that's not on our terms. That's been the whole problem at Manchester United, paying the tax every time. And now they're in a little bit of a financial bind. But value is around, it makes sense for us, it makes sense for you. And that's how you foster a good relationship with clubs as well. And if they didn't have that mutual respect in the negotiation, they wouldn't have got Wirtz done at value, seen as value by both Liverpool and Leverkusen, which tells you it's a deal that suits all parties. If Guehi becomes a deal that suits all parties, Richard Hughes will move. But interestingly, the actual profile they were looking for and are looking for is at a maximum age of Jarrell Quansah, who I think is about a year or two younger than Marc Guehi. So it's in the 18 to 22 bracket. And if they can get Guehi, it's because all the data suggests go away from that rule and get a proven Premier League player and take advantage of his contractual situation. But if they can't, they're going to pivot towards an even younger player than Guehi, who potentially is versatile and can be an heir to Virgil van Dijk, or even move over to the left-hand side, despite the fact that Milos Kerkez has joined too. And this is where, if you buy young, that player might say, I'll stick around for 2, 3, 4 years without as much expectation of instant game time. So then you're staggering your age groups to ensure that there's a transition, and you're taking the pressure of the price tag off. So Liverpool really like Joel Hatto more as a centre-back than a left-back. Interestingly, other clubs like Chelsea think that he could play more left-back potentially than centre-back, but that's not really Liverpool's perspective. With Khanage, we'll have to wait and see. There's been no progress on a new deal. But what I would say is Liverpool showed with Van Dijk and Salah, they're prepared to let contracts run down and then still get the renewals, at least 2 out of 3. They obviously lost Trent to Real Madrid. So don't feel like Liverpool will quite be in the same position as Crystal Palace, where they'll feel they need to push Khanage out the door to get money in. I think if they see value in him seeing out his contract, or if they want to take a gamble on him playing down his contract and maybe renewing, that if the data points towards him having value next season, might still be something that Liverpool do. It's true that Real Madrid, along with William Saliba, like both players and will be looking to add another centre-back at some point. It might not be this summer, but obviously in the next 12 months. And it wouldn't surprise me with Khanage if Real firm up their interest. And by the way, PSG might be there too. If they play the same approach with Trent Alexander-Arnold and they say, we'll wait a year, we'll try and get him to pre-agree on a free, and then Liverpool have got their own time to see whether they can change that narrative as well. So I think Liverpool are quite calm at the moment about the Ibrahima Konate situation, but definitely they want to bring in a centre-back before the window shuts, a number 9, facilitate the Nunez exit, see what happens with Luis Diaz, maybe add another left winger, and then add all that together with a few outgoings. Harvey Elliott, of course, could be a possibility, despite how outstanding he was at the under-21 Euros. Few other players out the door too, and then all in, Liverpool will feel like they've ticked every box that they were looking to do this summer and more.
I don't think anyone could have done a more concise, precise roundup of the situation of the Liverpool transfer window than Ben Jacobs. People, I hope you guys have enjoyed that. This was supposed to be a 20-minute segment. the way Ben covers everything, it was never going to be 20. People have been showering you with blessings, and thank you for your insight, Ben Jacobs. Go and check him out. All you got to do is type in Ben Jacobs and follow him on all his socials. He's doing great work over at TalkSport. Senior football correspondent for
You just promoted me there. I'll take it.
You know, it's coming.
Not true, but I'll take it.
It's coming. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. And what else is a matter of time? What Ben has alluded to is Liverpool fans. We have done great work, but stay calm. Liverpool are calm. And there is still more transfers to be coming into Liverpool. Possibly 2 forwards and a centre-back, Ben has alluded to. He's giving you his insight. Make sure you go and check him out. Make sure you go and check out all of his work. Thank you very much for listening and tuning in. We will try to get Ben again, as I said, with some more good news. And Ben, you may not be a Liverpool fan, but I tell you what, they do like your input and your insight. So you're very, very well loved amongst the Liverpool fan base. As long as you keep bringing the good news, we don't want you to turn into a bad bad news, Ben Jacobs. You know,
It's hard
so-
this window to bring bad news for Liverpool, but I can't promise every window will be like this for Liverpool.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Once again, people, thank you very much for joining us today. We will see you very soon. You never know, in the next 48 hours again with some more good news. But for tonight, peace, love, and tranquility to all.